Look at you, even pregnant. You're still useless.
Look at you. Even pregnant, you're still useless. He spat those words as his hand landed across her face, the sound echoing through the room. His friends roared with laughter, cheering him on like her pain was entertainment. She stood there trembling, one hand on her swollen belly, the other wiping tears he mocked as crocodile tears. To them, she was nothing. A wife to be humiliated, a toy to be broken, a woman too weak to fight back. But they forgot something. A woman pushed to the edge doesn't stay there. She rises. And the revenge she served wasn't screaming, wasn't begging, wasn't violence. It was quiet, calculated, devastating. The day he saw what she had done, the day he realized who she truly was, the same man who slapped her in front of his friends, fell to his knees and cried like a child. What she did next changed everything. And today it is being retold by me. Hello, family, welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request, please. Subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, because together we are not just telling stories, we are keeping hope alive. Emily pressed her hand against her belly the way she always did when the house felt too loud. It was a quiet morning, but she knew the silence never lasted long in Mark's world. The house was too big, too polished, and too cold for her taste, but Mark loved it because people admired it. Everything he owned had to be admired by someone: a house, a car, a joke, a wife. She leaned against the kitchen counter and took a slow breath. The baby kicked, a soft, fluttery reminder that she wasn't alone no matter how often she felt like she was disappearing into Mark's shadow. She whispered almost to herself, "We're okay. We're going to be okay." She did not believe it entirely, but the baby didn't need to know that. The front door opened with a rush of cold air and Mark's voice carried through the hallway before he even stepped inside. He was on the phone, laughing in that loud, forced way he used when he wanted someone to think he was funnier than he actually was. Emily straightened, brushing her hair behind her ear. Mark walked in with a confident swagger, one hand still pressed to his earpiece. His smile faded the moment his eyes landed on her. He rolled his eyes like her existence was an interruption. "No, man, it's just Emily," he said into the phone. "Yeah, she's fine. You know how pregnant women get." Emily pretended not to hear it, even though each word stung like a dull needle. She wasn't sensitive. She was tired of feeling like an obligation. He ended the call and dropped the phone on the counter. "You couldn't make breakfast?" he asked, like she had broken some unspoken rule. "I wasn't feeling great this morning," she said gently. "I can make something now." "Forget it." He opened the fridge, looking annoyed that the food inside didn't magically prepare itself. "You know we're having people over tonight." The reminder tightened her stomach. "Your friends again?" "Yes," he said, already impatient. "Jason, Tyler, a few others." "Don't make that face." "I didn't make a face." "You always do, like it's a problem." She didn't respond. If she did, it would only turn into something bigger. Instead, she started assembling a plate for him. She knew he liked when she stayed quiet. He sat at the island counter, scrolling through his phone. "My mom might come too." Emily paused. "Linda? Tonight?" "Yeah, she wants to see how you're holding up." That meant Linda wanted to see if Emily was still good enough for her son. Every time she saw Emily, she dropped at least one comment that could be taken as motherly concern or as an insult wrapped in silk. Emily forced a smile. "Of course." Mark glanced at her stomach. "Don't let her think you're struggling. You know how she gets when she thinks someone isn't pulling their weight." Emily didn't answer because she didn't trust her voice. She set the plate in front of him and walked to the sink so he wouldn't see her face. Mark took a bite and said, mouth half full, "You'll serve the drinks tonight." Her hands froze in the warm water. "Serve?" "Yeah, drinks, appetizers, you know." He waved a hand like it was no big deal. She turned slowly. "Mark, I'm 7 months pregnant. You act like that means you can't carry a tray. It's not about that, it's just, they're your friends, not guests I was hired to serve. He put the fork down and looked at her the way someone might look at a dog they wished would stop barking. Emily, please stop making everything a problem. They like when you're helpful. Helpful or obedient, she said before she could stop herself. His eyes sharpened. Do you want tonight to go badly? Is that what you want? No, she whispered. Then don't argue, just do what I ask. He finished eating, grabbed his keys and left again. No goodbye, no thank you. The silence returned, heavier than before. Later that day, Emily walked through the living room, trying to tidy up even though she moved slower now and tired easily. Linda's voice echoed in her mind from the last time she visited. Some women are made to be mothers, Emily. Some are not. I hope your child gets the right kind of upbringing. Emily had smiled tightly then, but afterward she cried in the bathroom until her chest hurt. She shook off the memory and kept cleaning. She had learned a long time ago that if the house wasn't perfect, Mark would blame her for embarrassing him. So she did everything she could to keep things peaceful. By late afternoon, she was exhausted. She sat on the couch for a moment, hand on her belly. I wish your dad loved us, she whispered. Really loved us. The baby kicked again, stronger this time, as if answering. Emily's phone buzzed. A message from Grace. On my way tonight. Need help with anything? Grace, her best friend since college. The one person Emily trusted for years, or at least she used to. Lately, Grace felt different, more distant, more distracted around Mark. Sometimes she avoided meeting Emily's eyes. Maybe it was all in her head. Stress played tricks on people, right? Emily typed back, I could use help in the kitchen. Grace responded immediately. I'll be there early. Emily hoped that would ease some of the tension. When the doorbell rang an hour later, Emily opened it expecting Grace. Instead, Linda stood there, wrapped in a coat that probably cost more than Emily's entire wardrobe. Hello, dear, Linda said with a tight smile. You look tired. Are you taking your vitamins? Yes, Emily said softly. Every day. Linda stepped inside, her eyes already scanning the house for imperfections. Mark said you were struggling today. Emily swallowed. Just a little nausea. Well, pregnancy is not an excuse to slack off. When I was pregnant with Mark, I hosted dinners twice a week. Emily nodded, because disagreeing never helped. Linda sat on the couch like she owned the place. Do you have water? Sparkling, if possible. Emily forced herself up again and went to the kitchen. She hated how the older woman watched her move, like evaluating her posture. On her way back, she overheard Linda speaking quietly on the phone. Yes, I'm here now. She looks overwhelmed. I don't think she's ready to raise a child in this lifestyle. No, Mark doesn't see it. He's too soft with her. Emily's breath caught. Soft? Mark? She clutched the water bottle tighter and walked in before she was tempted to listen more. Linda ended the call, smiling sweetly. Thank you, dear. Before Emily could sit, the door opened again and Grace slipped inside. Hey, she said, hugging Emily with careful arms. How are you feeling? Better now, Emily said, relieved to see her. Grace smiled, but something in her eyes flickered toward Linda, then toward the hallway leading to Mark's office. Was Emily imagining that? Guests arrived one by one. Jason and Tyler came last, laughing so loudly the whole house seemed to tremble. Jason slapped Mark's back and said, Ready to show off the mansion again? He spotted Emily in the kitchen and grinned. Look at you, 7 months and still moving. Respect, Tyler smirked. She's like a broodmare, Jason laughed. Exactly, strong hips. Emily froze, embarrassment running through her like cold water. Mark didn't correct them. He didn't even look at her. He just poured himself a drink. Grace frowned, but she didn't speak up either. Emily took a breath and stepped closer to Mark. Can you please tell them to stop, she whispered. Stop what? He said, annoyed. The jokes. They're humiliating. It's just guys being guys. Don't start drama. Emily stared at him. He had no idea how much those little comments chipped at her. Or maybe he knew and didn't care. The night dragged on. Emily served drinks, trying not to show how much her back hurt. She carried trays through the crowd while the men laughed, spilled beer, and tossed comments at her like she was part of the entertainment. Mark didn't look at her once with concern, only irritation. At one point, Emily stepped into the kitchen to breathe. She needed a minute, just 1 minute alone. Grace followed her. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "I'm fine," Emily said, though her voice trembled. I wish he'd help me, or defend me, or something." Grace hesitated. "He's stressed. Work has been rough. That's not an excuse to treat me like this." Grace opened her mouth, then closed it again. "Do you want me to talk to him?" "No," Emily said quickly. "He'll think I'm complaining behind his back." Grace nodded, but something about her expression felt strange. Guilty, worried, something deeper than simple concern. Before Emily could ask, Mark's voice echoed down the hall. "Emily, drinks!" Grace gave her a pitying look. Emily kept her eyes down. She could survive tonight. She had survived worse. But then Mark leaned back in his chair and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Come on, Emily, smile. Nobody wants a grumpy pregnant woman serving them." Laughter erupted around the room. Something inside Emily cracked a little. She whispered, "Please stop." He heard her. He did nothing. She walked away before tears could betray her, but when she reached the kitchen, she felt a wave of dizziness. She rested her hand on the counter, breathing slowly. She didn't see that Grace had followed her again. "You sure you're okay?" Grace asked. Emily nodded, blinking back the wetness in her eyes. "I'm fine." She wasn't fine. She was exhausted, hurt, afraid this was her future forever. And then, from the other room, Mark called again, sharper this time. "Emily, don't make me say it twice." Her heart dropped. She put the tray down, wiped her face, and walked back toward the living room because she didn't know what else to do. Emily walked back into the living room, already feeling the pressure settle on her chest again. Mark stood in the center of the room with a glass in his hand, talking loudly, moving his arms in big gestures like he was performing on a stage. Jason and Tyler laughed at everything he said, even the parts that weren't jokes. Linda watched him proudly from the couch, nodding like he was doing something impressive just by existing. "Finally," Mark said when he noticed her. "Took you long enough." "I wasn't feeling well," she said, keeping her voice soft so it wouldn't turn into a fight. "You're always not feeling well," he said. "Pregnancy isn't a disability." Jason snorted at that, and Tyler elbowed him, but they both grinned as if the comment was hilarious. Emily took a slow breath. "Do you need something?" "Yes, drinks. Again. And maybe pretend you actually want to be a good hostess tonight." Her stomach twisted. She turned to walk away before he could embarrass her further, but his voice followed behind her like a slap. "Pick up the pace, Emily. You're not 80. She didn't look back, but she heard the laughter. Every laugh felt like a sting. She reached the kitchen, set the tray down, and pressed her hand to her belly. "I'm sorry," she whispered to the baby. "I'm trying. I swear I'm trying." The baby shifted inside her, and she took another breath before picking up the drinks again and heading back to the others. Her steps were slow but steady. She refused to fall apart in front of them. As soon as she returned, Mark grabbed a drink off the tray without thanking her. "There, not that hard," he said, sipping it. Emily stood quietly, waiting to see if anyone else needed something before she walked away again. Jason leaned back in his chair and grinned. "Mark, you weren't joking. She really listens." "That's loyalty." "Yeah," Tyler chimed in, "but she's too quiet. A wife should be fun, you know? Not just standing there like a scared little rabbit." Emily looked down at her feet. The room felt hot. Too hot. Mark didn't defend her. Instead, he smirked a little. She used to be more fun before the pregnancy slowed her down. She felt something inside her shrink. Grace, who had been sitting in a corner watching everything, finally stood up. "Mark, maybe ease up a little," she said softly. Mark scoffed. "Oh, please, I'm not doing anything." "You're being rude," Grace said. That got the room's attention. Linda's eyebrows lifted with surprise, while Jason and Tyler exchanged looks like someone had finally caused actual drama. Mark turned to Grace. "Stay out of it. This is between me and my wife." Grace's jaw tightened, but she didn't push further. Emily's hands shook. She didn't want a scene, but her heart was pounding. She took a breath and said quietly, "Mark, please. I'm trying. I'm tired. I... He cut her off. You're always tired. What do you want me to do? Worship you because you're pregnant? No, she whispered. I want you to treat me like your wife. The room went silent. The kind of silence that doesn't calm anything, only makes it worse. Mark walked up to her, too close. Maybe try acting like one, he said. Mark, Grace warned, voice low. Emily stepped back a little, one hand instinctively covering her belly. Can we please stop this? Not here? Oh, so you get to embarrass me in front of my friends, but I'm not allowed to say anything. That's cute. I didn't embarrass you, she said, feeling her voice tighten. You're the one who... He moved faster than she expected. His hand struck her cheek so hard her vision blurred for a moment. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. The tray fell from her hands, glass shattering against the floor. Her body tensed, then trembled, shock rolling through her like ice. Jason and Tyler burst into loud, stupid laughter, clapping and hooting as if Mark had just scored a point in a game. Linda didn't gasp, didn't stand up, didn't show an ounce of concern. She only sighed quietly, as if Emily had caused the slap by standing there. Grace froze. The room spun a little as Emily steadied herself, one hand on her belly to make sure the baby was okay, the other wiping the tears she didn't want to show. Mark stood over her with a twisted, proud smile. Look at you, he said. Even pregnant, you're still useless. The words echoed around her. She felt them in her bones. Jason laughed harder. Damn, Mark! Tyler raised his beer like he was toasting. That's how you keep a woman in line. Emily's tears fell freely now, not because of pain, because of humiliation, because her husband had just slapped her like she was some stranger he didn't care about, because his friends cheered like it was entertainment. She backed away from him slowly, not trusting her legs fully. Her cheek burned. Her baby kicked, maybe from the sudden shock. She whispered, Why would you do that? Mark shrugged. Maybe you'll learn to listen. Grace stepped toward Emily then, but only a step. Not close enough to be a shield, not close enough to help. Her face was pale with shock, but her feet didn't move. Emily could barely breathe. She felt trapped, exposed, small. She wanted to scream or run or disappear entirely, but her body wouldn't cooperate. She stayed frozen, shame rooting her in place. Jason lifted his phone. Man, I should have recorded that, he joked. And then Emily noticed something. Grace wasn't watching Emily. She wasn't even watching Mark. Her phone was raised. Not high, not obvious, but just enough. The faint red light reflected in her eyes. Emily's stomach dropped. Grace had recorded it, recorded the slap, the insults, the laughter. Emily stared at her, barely managing to speak. Grace, what are you doing? Grace's eyes widened a little, like she hadn't expected to be caught. She lowered the phone, but not fast enough. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. I was trying to get proof, Grace said weakly, but her voice shook in a way that didn't match her words. In case you needed it. It sounded like a lie, a clumsy one. Emily stared at her friend's trembling hands. Grace wasn't shaking because she was upset. She was shaking because she was nervous, because she was hiding something, because the recording wasn't for Emily at all. In that moment, Emily felt a different kind of cold settle over her, a sharp, alert cold, the kind that came when something wasn't right, when something went deeper than the obvious hurt. Mark didn't notice. He was too busy taking another drink and laughing with his friends again, already moving on from what he had done. Linda looked away as if the whole scene bored her, and Grace kept glancing at her phone like she was waiting for something. Emily took a step toward her. Let me see the video. Grace stiffened. Emily, no, it's nothing. You were recording me, Emily said. Let me see. I said it's nothing. Grace turned the phone slightly, clutching it like she was afraid it would be grabbed from her. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Emily's heart thudded painfully. Something was wrong. Something was off. She looked closer, focusing on the screen. There was a tiny arrow in the corner. Not the save icon, not the playback icon, the sending icon. The motion was small, silent, easy to miss, But Emily saw it. A progress bar, a contact name at the top, a video being sent. Grace looked up then, meeting Emily's eyes with a flash of panic. Emily's breath caught. The realization hit her so hard she felt it in her knees. She wasn't watching a saved recording. She was watching a video being sent. Sent somewhere else. Sent right now. And that was where the night changed. That was where everything changed. Emily felt her lips part, her voice barely a whisper. "You're not saving it?" Her eyes widened as the truth clicked. "You're sending it. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to join our community by hitting the subscribe button. Through our stories, we build hope and give a future to children and women who have been abused all over the world. Motivate us by subscribing and turning on your notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. Also, let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from, and how did this story speak to you?" Emily barely slept after the night of the slap. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Grace holding that phone, saw the little sending icon glowing back at her. She kept replaying the moment when her friend refused to meet her eyes. It felt like the world had tilted under her feet, and she was still waiting to hit the ground. By morning, Mark acted like nothing had happened. He hummed while getting dressed, checking his reflection in the mirror, straightening his tie with the confidence of a man who believed he owned the day. Emily lay in bed, her cheeks sore, her eyes puffy, her stomach tight. She didn't want to speak, but he didn't care whether she spoke or not. He looked at her through the mirror and said, "Try not to be dramatic today. Last night was nothing." Her breath caught. "You hit me, Mark." He waved her off. "Emily, you get emotional over everything. You know that." "I wasn't emotional," she whispered. "I was humiliated." "Because you made it into a big deal," he snapped. "If you didn't cry in front of everyone, nobody would have cared." Her voice broke. "You shouldn't have slapped me." He turned then, eyes narrowing. "I wouldn't have if you listened the first time." She felt her throat tighten again. The baby kicked lightly as if echoing her distress. Mark checked his watch. "I have a meeting, and my friends might come over later." "Clean the living room." "After what happened last night?" she asked, shocked. He shrugged. "What happened last night is only embarrassing if you keep talking about it." Emily stared at him in disbelief. "You really think I'm the problem?" "You always are," he said. "I get stressed. You take everything personally. You need to learn how to handle things better." He walked out without another word. Emily sat there in silence until she felt the tears start. She tried to hold them back, but they fell anyway. She moved slowly to the bathroom, looked in the mirror, and saw the faint imprint of his fingers on her cheek. She touched it gently and whispered, "I'm sorry you saw that," directing the apology to her unborn child. She washed her face, trying to erase the evidence, but the redness stayed. Her phone buzzed. When she looked, her stomach dropped. It was a message from someone in Mark's social circle, a woman she barely knew. The message had no words, only a link. Emily hesitated, then tapped it. Her heart plummeted. It was the video, the slap, her crying, Mark's friends cheering, every second of humiliation captured and shared. Her breath hitched. She dropped the phone on the counter, covering her mouth. Something in her chest cracked open and she sank to the floor, tears spilling down her face. Grace. Grace was the one holding the phone. Grace was the one who recorded it. And now the video was spreading. Another notification came in. Another link. Another message. Emily forced herself to stand and picked up the phone again. The second message was from Jason. He had forwarded the same clip with laughing emojis. A third message came in, then a fourth. People she barely knew were sending it. She felt sick. When Mark came home that afternoon, he walked into the kitchen like nothing was wrong. He pulled a drink from the fridge and took a sip before glancing at her. "What's with the face?" he asked. "Mark," she said, voice shaky. "The video is everywhere." He stopped mid-sip. "What video?" "The one Grace recorded." His jaw tightened for barely half a second before he forced a laugh. "So what? People share jokes all the time." "That wasn't a joke," Emily whispered. "It's only embarrassing because you're making it embarrassing," he snapped. "People know how couples fight. It's normal." "It wasn't normal," she said. "You slapped me while I was pregnant. And you cried on the floor," he said coldly. "That part was worse, honestly." She felt the floor beneath her shift, just a little. "You're upset about it?" she asked. "I'm upset because you made me look bad," he said. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. If you had walked away quietly, nobody would have reacted the way they did." Emily stared at him like he was a stranger. Maybe he always had been. Another message buzzed on her phone. Mark glanced at it. "Don't look at that," he said. "It'll only make things worse." "Why would Grace send it?" Emily whispered. "Why would she do that?" Mark shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe she wanted to show someone what happened. Maybe she thought she was helping. Who cares?" Emily swallowed. "She sent it to people who barely know me." Mark rolled his eyes. "Then stop giving people things to talk about." She pressed her hand to her belly again, feeling the baby respond. "Mark," she said, steadying her voice, "why didn't you defend me at any point last night?" "Because you made me angry," he said simply. "And because you keep pushing, you never know when to stop. I asked you to tell them to stop insulting me." "So?" he said. "They're my friends. They joke. You need to toughen up." She felt a new kind of cold settle inside her. Something like clarity. Something like anger but quieter. That night while he showered, Emily sat on the couch in the dark. The house felt too big again. Too empty. Too sharp. Her phone buzzed. "Grace, can we talk?" Emily stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "Why did you send the video?" The typing bubble appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Because you should know the truth." Emily frowned. "What truth?" Grace replied. "I'll come over tomorrow. Mark doesn't need to know." Emily's heartbeat quickened. A strange dread crept through her body. Grace didn't sound like a friend. She sounded like someone who knew something she shouldn't. After Mark went to bed, Emily lay awake staring at the ceiling until dawn. Grace arrived the next afternoon. She walked in quietly, not smiling this time. Her hair was pulled back, her eyes tired, her mouth tense. Emily didn't offer her a seat. She crossed her arms and asked, "Why did you send that video?" Grace let out a slow breath. "Because people needed to know what Mark is like." "No," Emily said, shaking her head. "That's not why. Who did you send it to first?" Grace looked away. "It doesn't matter." "It does," Emily insisted. "Tell me." Grace hesitated, then sat down. "Emily," she said gently, "Mark told me things. Things you don't know." Emily's stomach tightened. "What things?" Grace licked her lips. "He told me you were causing problems, that you were getting emotional, that you were dragging him down. He said you were trying to turn people against him." Emily stared at her. "So you sent the video to help him?" Grace looked guilty. "At first I didn't know what to think, but when I saw how he talked to you, I realized he wasn't who I thought he was." Emily felt a small sting of betrayal. "You thought you knew him better than I did?" Grace didn't answer. Emily stepped back. "Why are you acting like you're the victim?" Grace stood. "Because he lied to both of us." Emily blinked. "Both of us?" Grace swallowed. "Emily, I should have told you sooner. I should have told you months ago." "Told me what?" Grace's voice cracked. "Mark and I were seeing each other." The world froze. For a moment, Emily didn't hear anything. Not the clock, not her own breathing, nothing. All she felt was the slow, heavy drop of her heart. "You're lying," Emily whispered. "I'm not," Grace said softly. Emily shook her head, stepping back until she hit the wall. "You were my friend." "I know," Grace whispered. "I didn't plan it. He said he was unhappy. He said you fought all the time. He said he needed someone who understood him." Tears filled Emily's vision. "And you believed him?" "I did," Grace said. "I'm sorry." Emily pressed her hand to her mouth. A soft, broken sound escaped. Grace moved toward her. "He promised me things. He promised he'd support me. He promised he'd leave you eventually." Emily felt the words hit her like physical blows. "And Linda knows," Grace added. "She knew everything." Emily dropped her hand. "Linda knew." Grace nodded. "She told me Mark didn't marry the right woman. She told me you weren't strong enough for the family. She said maybe you'd realize it on your own." Emily felt the baby kick hard. almost painfully, as if reacting to the truth too. "You slept with my husband," Emily whispered, and his mother approved. Grace's eyes filled with tears. "Emily, I swear, I didn't want to hurt you. I thought he loved me." Emily stared at her. "And now?" Grace closed her eyes. "Now I'm not sure he ever loved anyone." Emily turned away from her. She didn't want Grace's tears. She didn't want her apologies. She didn't want anything except distance. Mark came home early that evening and found Emily sitting on the edge of the bed. He tossed his keys down. "Why are you sulking now?" Emily looked up slowly. "How long have you been sleeping with Grace?" For the first time in days, Mark froze. Just for a second. Then he scoffed. "You talked to her?" "Answer me," Emily said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was steady. "You're overreacting," he said. "It was nothing." "Nothing?" she whispered. "You cheated on me while I was pregnant." "It was a mistake," he said. "Don't make it bigger than it is." "It was months," she said. "Grace told me everything." Mark rolled his eyes. "Grace is emotional. She exaggerates." "No," Emily said. "That's you." His face hardened. "You're pushing me, Emily. You're starting something you can't handle." She felt a flicker of fear but didn't back down. "You lied to me." "I lie to protect you," he said. She stared at him. "No, you lie to protect yourself." Something flickered in his eyes then. Anger. A silent, simmering anger that made her skin crawl. "You're going to stop this right now," he said, "or you're going to regret it." Emily felt the baby kick again. She placed her hand over her belly. Mark saw that and smirked. "You think that kid gives you power? You think being pregnant means I won't push back?" She stayed quiet. "I'm cutting your access to the bank card," he said. "If you're going to act like this, you don't need money." She gasped. "Mark, and if you cause more chaos," he added coldly, "my mother will take the baby. She already said so." Emily's breath caught. "You can't do that," she whispered. "We can," he said. "We will." Emily felt something break inside her. Something deep, something silent. He walked out, leaving her trembling. And for the first time, Emily began to realize something important. She was not safe, not with him, not with any of them. But she still had enough strength to do one thing: start paying attention. Emily woke up the next morning with a tightness in her chest that felt heavier than her own body. The air in the room felt stale, the kind of stale that comes from fear sitting too long in the same place. She could still hear Mark's voice from the night before, his threat repeating in her head like a broken radio. "My mother will take the baby. She already said so." She sat up slowly and touched her belly. "I'm here," she whispered to her child. "I'm still here." But for how long? She didn't know. Mark had already left for work. His side of the bed was cold. He didn't leave a note, didn't check on her, didn't care that she spent half the night shaking and crying as quietly as she could. Emily pushed herself up and walked to the kitchen. She reached for her purse on instinct, but when she opened it, her stomach dropped. The debit card was gone. He had taken it out. Her pulse quickened. She checked her wallet again, searching through every pocket even though she knew it wasn't there. The card that held all the money she used for groceries, doctor visits, everything, gone. Her phone buzzed with a notification from the bank. Declined attempt at 8:07 a.m. So he wasn't only cruel, he was fast about it. She closed her eyes and swallowed hard, feeling panic rise up like a wave. No money, no support. A baby due soon. A husband who would rather break her than help her. She needed to breathe. She forced herself to sit down and take slow breaths, the way the doctor told her to, when anxiety got bad. She counted to 10, then 20. Eventually, the trembling in her hands faded enough that she could think again. She had one person left she could maybe talk to. Not Grace, never again. Her obstetrician's nurse. The woman who gave her a card months ago with the words, "If you need help, call." Emily opened her phone and stared at the number. Her finger hovered above it. She didn't press it. She couldn't bring herself to talk yet, not without knowing exactly what she needed to say. Instead, she began documenting everything. She opened a new note and wrote down every threat, every insult, every bruise that had faded, every word Linda ever said about her being unfit. She wrote about the slap, about the video, about the credit card being removed. She didn't know what any of it meant yet, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't imagining what was happening to her. When she finished, she felt something unfamiliar inside her. Not strength exactly, more like a seed of it, small, quiet, but there. She spent the rest of the morning cleaning, not because she wanted to, but because she knew Mark would check everything. He always checked. If a pillow wasn't where he left it, he'd make a comment sharp enough to ruin her entire night. Around noon, the doorbell rang. Her body tensed instantly. She peeked through the window and saw Linda standing outside, her arms crossed, tapping her foot like she had already been waiting too long. Emily opened the door with her heart racing. Linda stepped inside without greeting her. "Sit," she said. Emily sat. Linda placed her purse on the table and folded her hands. "Mark told me you're causing problems again." "I'm not." "Do not interrupt me," Linda snapped. Emily's words died in her throat. Linda let out a disappointed sigh, the kind that made Emily feel 5 years old. "This moodiness of yours is becoming an issue. The crying, the arguing, the emotional episodes. Mark doesn't need this kind of stress right now." "I've been under stress too," Emily whispered. Linda ignored it. "Mark told me you questioned him last night, accused him. That's not how a marriage works." Emily looked down at her hands. They were shaking again. Linda leaned forward. "You are going to calm yourself. You are going to stop starting fights. And you are going to remember that the baby deserves stability." Emily felt something inside her snap. It was small, but it was there. "Stability doesn't mean being silent," she said softly. Linda's eyes went cold. "If you keep pushing, I will take this child from you." Emily felt the breath leave her body. "You can't." "I can," Linda said calmly, "and I will. I have money, I have lawyers, I have connections. If you become a problem, I will declare you unfit. Mark and I have already discussed it." Emily didn't know when she started shaking harder. She only knew she felt suddenly smaller, like she was shrinking under the weight of Linda's stare. "You have one job," Linda said. "Stay quiet. Stay put. Don't embarrass the family further. If you want to stay in this house, you will cooperate." Emily wanted to scream. Instead, she whispered, "I haven't done anything wrong." "That video says otherwise." Emily's heart lurched. "You saw it?" "Of course," Linda scoffed. "Everyone did. You made Mark look abusive." Emily flinched. "He hit me." Linda shrugged. "Even good men lose their temper. If you had listened, it wouldn't have happened." Emily felt nausea push up her throat. Linda stood. "I expect you to behave from now on." When she left, the house felt even colder. Emily spent an hour sitting on the floor, hugging her knees, trying not to fall apart. Eventually, she got up and went to Mark's office in the house. She hadn't gone inside in months. He always kept the door shut, always said she had no reason to be in there. But something in her pushed her forward. Inside, the room was neat. Too neat. No papers scattered. No books out of place. Just clean surfaces like he was hiding anything that mattered. Emily opened drawers carefully one by one. Most were empty, but the bottom drawer of his desk refused to slide open. She had to tug twice before it gave. Inside, she saw a stack of envelopes, receipts, in a thick binder. Her heart sped up. She pulled the binder out and opened it on the desk. Financial statements, business projections, emails printed out, a page titled Emergency Loss Recovery Plan. Before Grace could answer, another person entered. Linda. She smiled at the nurse like she was greeting a toddler, then turned to Emily with fake sweetness dripping off her voice. "How are we feeling?" Linda asked. Emily stiffened. "What are you doing here?" "I'm checking on the mother of my grandchild," Linda said. "The nurse said you were overwhelmed. You've always been emotional, dear." "I'm not emotional," Emily whispered. Linda turned to the nurse. "She has a history of instability. It's genetic. Runs in her side of the family." Emily sat up, shocked. "Linda." "Don't argue," Linda said calmly. "It won't help you." Grace looked down at her hands. She didn't defend Emily. Not once. The nurse gave Linda a wary look but didn't comment. Then Linda leaned in and whispered through a tight smile, "If you cause more trouble, we will take the baby. Do you understand?" Emily felt the blood drain from her face. Linda straightened and walked out. Grace gave Emily a nervous, apologetic look, then followed Linda. Emily didn't move for several minutes. She just sat there staring at the door, trying to understand how her life had dropped into a place she didn't recognize. Later, when the doctor returned, Emily was discharged with strict instructions to avoid stress. She nodded silently, even though she knew stress was the only thing she had left. She took a cab home because Mark never came back. When she walked into the empty house, she saw the binder on the counter. She didn't remember leaving it there. Maybe Mark had tossed it out after their argument. Heart pounding, she opened it again. And this time she turned to the last section. Loan agreements, a forged signature, more missing money, her name printed under a massive loan she never took. Her chest tightened again. If this ever came out, she would be tied to the crime. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out and opened it slowly. It was a message from an unknown number, a video file. She tapped it with shaking fingers. Mark and Linda appeared on the screen, sitting close, whispering, plotting, discussing how to declare her mentally unfit, how to take her baby, how to cut her off completely. Emily stared, shaking. Then she saw the words under the video. I know what they did to you, and I know their secret. Meet me if you're ready to burn them. Emily stared at the message until her vision blurred. She didn't blink. She barely breathed. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to grip the back of a chair to steady herself. The house around her felt too large, too still, like every object was holding its breath, waiting to see what she would do next. Her first instinct was fear. Who sent this? How did they get a recording of Mark and Linda speaking in private? Why did they know so much? But mixed with the fear was something she hadn't felt in a long time. Something quiet, something steady. Hope. Not the warm kind, not the soft kind. A colder hope. Sharp. Controlled. A hope that came from seeing the truth laid bare. She rewound the video. She watched Linda's mouth move, calm and calculated. If she starts acting up again, we'll need to document it. Make her look unstable. It will make custody easier. Mark nodded in agreement. She's too emotional. Judges hate that. We can get full custody in a heartbeat. Emily pressed a hand to her stomach. The baby kicked, as if startled by her racing heartbeat. She watched the video again and again. Each time the shock softened and hardened into something else. Determination. She finally looked down at the message still glowing on her phone. I know what they did to you, and I know their secret. Meet me if you're ready to burn them. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. Who sent this? Someone close enough to hear private conversations? Someone who wanted to expose them? Someone who had something to gain or something to punish Mark for? Emily wiped her face and forced herself to breathe. She typed back one word. Who? The typing bubble appeared almost instantly. Not now. Not on your phone. I'll explain in person. Come to the address attached. Don't tell Mark. Don't tell anyone. Emily clicked on the linked address. It was a location across town. A quiet part of the city she barely recognized. Her stomach twisted. Part of her wanted to throw the phone across the room. It could be a trap. It could be someone connected to Mark. Someone trying to lure her out and paint her as unstable. But whoever it was had proof. Proof she desperately needed. Her phone buzzed again. If you want to save your baby, come. Emily froze. Outside, car lights flashed across the window. She peeked through the blinds and saw Mark's car pulling into the driveway. Her pulse spiked so fast she almost dropped her phone. She closed the blinds and rushed to put the binder back into the drawer. She shoved it deep, trying to make the room look untouched. The front door unlocked. Emily, Mark called. Where are you? She stepped away from the drawer and forced her breathing to slow. I'm here. Mark stepped inside, looking irritated before he even saw her face. He tossed his jacket on a chair. Why is the house so dark? I wasn't feeling well, she said quietly. When are you ever feeling well? He muttered. She didn't answer. She didn't trust her voice not to tremble. He walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle, and turned to look at her. You're being weird. What's going on? Nothing. Liar. Emily braced herself. I got a message. A message from who? I don't know. Mark scoffed. Probably some pregnant support group or something. Emily swallowed. It, it had a video. Mark froze. What video? She didn't blink. You and your mother. The color drained from his face. Tell me where you got that, he demanded. I'm not sure, she whispered. He stepped closer, his voice tight. You're hiding something. Emily shook her head. You're lying again, he snapped. You're always lying about something. I'm not lying, she said softly. He stared at her a long time, searching her face for a crack. She stayed still, silent, small. He didn't need to know what she knew. Not yet. He finally shook his head. Whatever. I don't have time for your episodes tonight. I have another meeting. He started toward the door. Emily found her courage again, just a threat of it. Mark, she said, what would you do if someone exposed you? He stopped. He turned slowly, eyes narrowing. What did you just say? I said, I heard what you said. He walked toward her, lowering his voice to a dangerous whisper. You're not making sense. You're confused. You're emotional. And if you don't stop talking like this, people are going to think you're unstable. Emily didn't look away. Maybe I'm not the one they'll look at. His face changed. For a split second, he looked afraid. Then the fear hardened to anger. Don't test me, Emily. You won't win. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The house shook. Emily stood perfectly still until she heard his car fade down the street. Only then did her legs give out. She sank onto the couch, shaking uncontrollably. Her hand flew to her stomach again. I'm sorry, she whispered to the baby. I'm trying to keep you safe. The phone buzzed again. Are you coming? You have to come before he destroys everything. Emily wiped her eyes and forced her muscles into motion. She grabbed her coat, her shoes, and the card the nurse gave her. She tucked it into her pocket before stepping outside. The night air was cold, sharp, almost painful against her skin. She walked to the curb and called a rideshare, looking over her shoulder every few seconds as if Mark might come back. During the ride, she pressed her hands together and whispered to herself to stay calm. The baby kicked again, stronger, like a reminder she wasn't alone. The driver dropped her off in a quiet neighborhood. The streetlights buzzed faintly, casting soft circles of light on the sidewalk. The address led her to a two-story building tucked between two old storefronts. The windows were dark except one upstairs. Emily hesitated on the sidewalk. She could turn back. She could pretend she hadn't seen anything. She could try to survive quietly. But she wasn't sure how long she could survive. She took a breath and climbed the steps. Before she knocked, the door clicked open. A shadow moved inside. Emily, a voice said softly, come in. Emily stepped inside cautiously. The person stood in the dim light of a lamp. A man, tall, with tired eyes and a face that looked haunted by too many secrets. He watched her closely. You're safe here. Don't worry. Emily's pulse raced. Who are you? He stepped forward. My name is Ethan, he said. She frowned. I don't know an Ethan. I know, he said, but you know my family. Emily froze. Your family? She whispered. He nodded once. I'm Mark's half-brother. Emily's breath caught. Mark never said anything about a brother. He wouldn't, Ethan said quietly. He hates that I exist. She stepped back slightly. Why did you send me that video? Because I know what they're doing, he said, and I know how to stop them. Emily felt her knees weaken. Why would you help me? Ethan looked her straight in the eyes. Because they did the same thing to me, he said, and I won't let them do it to you. She flipped through the binder page by page until she saw something that made her freeze. A bank statement, a private account under Mark's name, 2 listed beneficiaries. One was Mark himself, the other. Emily's breath hitched. The other beneficiary was Grace. She blinked hard, thinking maybe her eyes were tired. But no, there it was, her best friend's name, on Mark's private account. Emily kept turning the pages, each one heavier in her hand. Another statement showed money missing from her inheritance account, a large sum, much larger than what she saw earlier. Her stomach flipped. Her hand covered her mouth as the truth hit her with the force of a blow. The money wasn't used. It wasn't transferred. It wasn't reallocated. It was stolen. Emily stood in the hallway staring at the binder, her fingers trembling around the edges. She kept reading the numbers again and again, hoping she had made a mistake. hoping fatigue or fear had twisted the lines in front of her. But they stayed the same. The missing money, the forged signature, Grace's name as a beneficiary. None of it changed. Her knees went weak, and she leaned against the wall until her breathing slowed. The house was quiet, too quiet, like it was holding its breath with her. She didn't know how long she stood there before she finally closed the binder and slid it back into the drawer. She couldn't let him know she'd seen it. Not yet. Not until she understood everything. She made it halfway to the bedroom when she heard Mark's car outside. Her heart jerked. She rushed into the living room, trying to look like she'd been sitting the whole time. When the front door opened, she sat up straight, forcing her face into something calm. Mark stepped inside with the same energy he always had after yelling at someone. He thrived off arguments. It made him feel important. He dropped his keys on the table and walked into the kitchen, opening a bottle of water as if nothing in the world was wrong. "You look pale," he said without glancing at her. "I'm fine." "Good. Don't start anything today. I don't have the patience." Emily wanted to scream. Instead, she pressed a hand against her belly and breathed. "Mark, we need to talk about the money." He groaned. "Emily, not this again." "You forged my signature," she said quietly. He turned then, slowly, like he couldn't believe she had dared to say that out loud. "Watch yourself. I saw the papers. You shouldn't have been in my office. You forged my name," she said again, her voice trembling. "That's a crime." He laughed under his breath. "Being dramatic again. You wouldn't survive one day without me keeping this house running." "It was my inheritance," she whispered. "Our money. That's what marriage is." "No," she said. "That's not what marriage is." Mark stepped closer. "You want to know what marriage is? It's you not questioning every move I make. It's trusting me to take care of everything. You can't handle stress, Emily. You fall apart every time something bad happens. I take responsibility. I make decisions. That's how this works. You stole from me. You cheated on me. You humiliated me." He pointed a finger at her. "Stop blaming me for your emotions." She felt her throat tighten. "You hurt me." "You hurt yourself," he snapped. "Always crying. Always complaining. You think anyone would put up with that?" Emily felt something slide loose inside her, like a rope snapping. "You think you're the victim," he said, scoffing. "You should be thanking me for giving you this life." "I didn't ask for this life," she whispered. He stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head like she disgusted him. "You know what? I don't have time for this. I have a meeting. We'll talk when you're calm." "I am calm," she whispered. He didn't believe her. He didn't care. He walked out the door without looking back. The silence felt like a physical weight. Emily felt her knees go weak, and she sank onto the couch. She pressed her hand to her chest, trying to keep her breath steady. But the panic rose too fast. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Her head spun. Her belly tightened painfully. Then everything went blurry. She didn't remember falling, but she remembered the cold shock of the floor and the distant echo of her own voice calling for help. She remembered the burning in her stomach and the way her vision dimmed around the edges. She remembered begging, even though no one was there to hear it. When she opened her eyes again, she was under bright hospital lights. A nurse leaned over her. "Emily, can you hear me?" Emily nodded weakly. "You fainted," the nurse said softly. "Your blood pressure dropped. You're dehydrated and very stressed. The baby is okay, but you have to rest." Emily tried to sit up. "Where's Mark?" The nurse hesitated. "He stepped out." "Of course he did." Emily swallowed hard. "How long have I been here?" "About 2 hours." Emily covered her face with shaking hands. She felt tears forming again and couldn't stop them. The nurse placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I'm not allowed to interfere," the woman said quietly, "but I've seen this before. Many times." Emily froze. The nurse slipped something small into her palm. A card. "If you need help," she whispered, "call this number, day or night." Emily stared at the card. It didn't look like an ordinary medical card. No logo, no hospital name. Just a phone number and a name, Rachel. Before she could ask questions, a voice exploded from the hallway. "Are you kidding me?" Emily flinched. The nurse straightened quickly and stepped aside. Mark stormed into the room, slamming the door shut behind him. Unbelievable, he said loudly. You faint and suddenly everyone thinks it's my fault? I had to leave a meeting for this. Emily looked at him slowly. I collapsed, Mark. You're always collapsing, he snapped. Maybe stop stressing yourself out. I'm stressing myself out? Her voice cracked. You yelled at me. You stole from me. You threatened me. Mark rolled his eyes. Here we go again. When are you going to grow up? Mark, she whispered, I'm pregnant. Yes, and you use that to get sympathy. I'm sick of it. The nurse cleared her throat. Sir, her body. Stay out of this, Mark snapped. My wife exaggerates everything. Emily closed her eyes. She felt her heart breaking in slow motion. Mark grabbed his coat. When they discharge you, call me. I'm not sitting here babysitting your feelings. He walked out. The door slammed again. Emily curled onto her side and cried as quietly as she could. She didn't know how long she lay like that before another knock came. She wiped her face quickly. Grace stepped inside. Emily's stomach twisted. Grace looked gentle, too gentle, her eyes wide with concern. Oh my God, Em! I heard you were here. What happened? Emily stiffened. Why are you wearing Mark's bracelet? Grace froze. Her sleeve had slipped just enough to show the silver bracelet Mark wore every day. Oh, Grace whispered. I was holding it for him. He forgot it in the car. Emily stared at her. You're lying. Grace sighed and sat down near her bed. Emily, I didn't come here to fight. Then why did you come? Because you're upset and I care about you. Emily laughed bitterly through tears. You care. I do. You recorded me getting slapped. Grace looked away. I thought it would help you. You needed proof. You sent it, Emily whispered. You sent it to someone. Grace didn't answer. Emily swallowed hard. Why did you come here, Grace? Really? Grace took a long breath. Mark is thinking about divorce. Emily froze. What? Grace nodded slowly. He says you're unstable, that you're hurting his reputation, that he can't keep living with someone who causes scenes. Emily felt nausea rise in her throat. And, Grace added carefully, he wants full custody. He says it's better for the baby. Emily felt her world tilt again. He can't do that. He can, Grace whispered. His family has money, lawyers, doctors who will say whatever they pay them to. Emily pressed her hands to her face. Why are you telling me this? Grace hesitated, then leaned closer. Emily, he's planning to divorce you before the baby is born. He thinks it will make the custody case easier. He wants to look like the stable one. Emily looked at her through wet eyes. Why are you helping him? I'm not, Grace insisted. I don't want to see you get blindsided. Emily studied her. Something felt wrong, off balance. Grace's voice shook, but her eyes didn't look sad. They looked fearful, guilty, like someone who wasn't telling the whole truth. Emily's gaze drifted to the bracelet again. You said you were holding that for him, she said quietly. Grace tucked her sleeve over it. Emily, how long? Emily whispered. How long have you been with him? Grace's mouth opened, then closed. I'm sorry, she whispered. Emily's chest tightened. You said he promised you things. Grace nodded. He said once you broke, he'd marry someone who actually benefits him. Emily's blood ran cold. Someone like you? Grace looked down. He said it made more sense. For the family. For his image. Emily stared at her old friend, her voice barely louder than a breath. You betrayed me. Emily felt her heart slam against her ribs. Ethan looked toward a folder on the table. I have proof of everything Mark has done. Everything Linda has covered up. The fraud, the forged documents, the custody plan. Emily's breath quickened. You've been trapped, Ethan said gently. But you don't have to be. They think you're weak. They think you're scared. They think you're about to break. Emily swallowed hard. Are you? Ethan asked. Emily looked down at her hands. They were shaking, but not from fear anymore. From something else, something stronger. She felt a clarity rising inside her. Quiet, steady. No panic this time. She lifted her chin and whispered the words that had been building in her chest since she saw the video. Let them think I'm broken. Emily didn't move at first. She stood in Ethan's dim apartment, staring at him, trying to understand how her entire world had turned into something unrecognizable. He watched her with a look that was strangely familiar, like he had once felt the same fear she was feeling now. You said they did the same thing to you, Emily whispered. Ethan nodded. Not the same way, but close enough. What did they do? He gestured toward the table. Sit, I'll show you. Emily sank into a chair slowly, one hand resting on her belly without thinking. Ethan sat across from her and pulled a folder toward them. She hadn't realized how thick the folder was until he opened it and the papers spread outward like wings. The top page showed a family picture she had never seen before. Mark, younger, with Linda, and a man who looked nothing like him. That was their holiday card, Ethan said quietly. The last one they sent before everything blew up. Emily studied the picture. Who's the man? My father, Ethan said, and not Mark's. Emily looked up sharply. What? Ethan took a slow breath. Mark's father isn't the man you think. Linda got pregnant before she married into the family. She hid it. The patriarch was told the baby was his. He only found out the truth when Mark was a teenager. Emily froze. And he still accepted him? No, Ethan said. He wanted to cut Mark out, but Linda threatened to expose him for something he did years earlier. She blackmailed her own husband to protect Mark. Emily's throat tightened. So that's why Mark hates you? Ethan nodded. I was the real heir, the legitimate one. But Mark, he couldn't stand that. He lied, manipulated, stole, did everything he could to push me out. One day he framed me for mismanaging funds. My father believed him. So I was cut out. Emily felt the room tilt. And Mark took your place. He took everything, Ethan said. And now he's doing the same to you. Emily looked at the stack of papers again. I didn't know any of this. You weren't supposed to, Ethan said. Mark builds his power by making sure no one ever sees the truth. Emily swallowed hard. Why help me? Ethan didn't hesitate. Because he went too far this time. And because you're the first person he hurt who didn't deserve a single piece of it. Emily shook her head. No one deserves this. Ethan's eyes softened. You're right. He slid another document toward her. This one was familiar. Too familiar. It had her name on it. Her forged signature. You've seen this before, he said. Yes, Emily whispered. I found it in his office. This is just one loan, Ethan said. Mark took 3, all in your name. Emily blinked, stunned. 3? He nodded. And that's not all. He opened another folder. Inside were screenshots of emails between Mark and someone named Davis. They described the plan in detail, how Mark would funnel money from her inheritance into the business, hide the losses, and blame her if anything went wrong. Emily stared at the words, feeling sick. He used me. He used you to save himself, Ethan said. He planned everything. He didn't marry you because he loved you. He married you because you were useful. Emily looked down at her hands. They were shaking again. She hated that they shook. Ethan leaned forward. Look at me. She met his eyes hesitantly. You survived everything he threw at you, and now you have something he didn't expect. What? She whispered. Ethan tapped the folder of evidence. Truth. Emily's breath caught. And we're going to use it, he said. Emily leaned back slowly. How? Ethan took out a small notebook, flipping through it. You're going to build a case, a quiet one that wraps around him without him noticing. When it closes, he won't have anywhere to escape. Emily listened carefully as Ethan explained. We start with 2 lawyers, he said, ones who owe nothing to your husband's family, ones who can't be bought. Emily nodded. Okay. Then we add the nurse, he said, the one who saw Linda claim you were unstable. Her statement is solid gold. Emily held her breath, remembering the woman's calm voice and steady hand. Next, Ethan continued, we need a forensic accountant, someone who can trace every dollar Mark stole in your name, someone who can prove fraud. Emily pressed her lips together. Will that take long? Yes, Ethan said honestly, but when it's done, it will destroy him. Emily didn't feel joy or satisfaction. Just something quiet, something numb. Ethan paused, then spoke carefully. Do you want revenge, Emily? She placed a hand on her belly. I want protection. Ethan nodded. Then we'll get it. He stood and went to a shelf, pulling down a thick envelope. Before we go any further, you need to see this. Emily took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were photos. Dark, grainy, but clear enough to see Mark handing a man a packet of papers outside a restaurant. What is this? She asked. That's the investigator who helped Mark forge your signature, Ethan said. I recorded their meeting. Emily stared at the photos. Why didn't you use this earlier? I didn't have a reason, Ethan said. He hadn't targeted anyone innocent. But when I saw the video of him slapping you, I knew he'd gone too far even for him. Emily felt a lump rise in her throat. Why now? Why help me now? Ethan hesitated. Because I saw myself in you. Emily's eyes softened. He looked away quickly as if embarrassed. He did something like this to me. Not the physical part, but the humiliation, the lies, the threats. I lost everything because of him. You're not going to lose everything. Not again. Not this time. Emily exhaled, slow and unsteady. What do we do first? Ethan smiled faintly. You're stronger than you think. She didn't feel strong, but she nodded. He pulled a laptop closer. We start tonight. For the next hour, Ethan walked her through everything. She signed nothing. She agreed to nothing. She just listened. Each piece of the plan felt sharp and daring, but precise. When we're ready, Ethan said, you'll make your move, and he'll never see it coming. Emily found herself whispering, Mark thinks I'm weak. Good, Ethan said. Let him. She rubbed her belly again, feeling the baby shift. I want this child safe. They will be, Ethan promised. You'll have full custody before this is over. I'll make sure of it. Emily's eyes watered again, but this time the tears didn't fall. Ethan lowered his voice. There's something else you need to know. Emily braced herself. Ethan reached for another folder, thicker, heavier, sealed. He slid it toward her. This, he said, is the biggest secret of all. Emily stared at the seal. Bigger than the fraud? Much bigger. Bigger than the forged loan? Yes. Her heart thudded. Does it have to do with Mark? It has to do with everything Mark is, Ethan said quietly. Everything he pretends to be. Emily didn't open the folder yet. She looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. What is it? Ethan took a slow breath, like he was trying to choose the right words. Mark, he said softly, is not who he says he is. Emily's fingers trembled on the edge of the folder. What do you mean? He's not the heir, Ethan said. Not legally, not biologically, not in any way that matters. Emily blinked. But Linda lied, Ethan said. She lied to the family. She lied to Mark. She lied to everyone. The air in the room thinned. Why? To protect him, Ethan said, because he was never supposed to be part of the family, because he was her mistake, and she would burn the world down before letting anyone know. Emily swallowed, stunned into silence. Ethan leaned back in his chair. Everything Mark built, his power, his confidence, the way he treats you, it comes from a life built on a secret that's about to collapse. Emily pressed a hand to her chest. Her heart was pounding so loud she could hear it. And, Ethan added, you are the one who will collapse it. Emily's next breath shook. Why me? She whispered. Ethan answered without hesitation. Because you're the one he underestimated. Emily looked at the folder again, feeling its weight, feeling the truth inside it like a storm waiting to break. She didn't open it yet. She just whispered the first thought that came to her mind. He took everything from me. And now, Ethan said softly, you will take everything back. Emily closed her eyes, steadying herself for whatever came next. She wasn't ready, but she would be. Emily didn't sleep that night. She lay awake in Ethan's apartment, staring at the ceiling while he sat at the table finishing the documents they needed. Every few minutes, she touched her belly just to feel the baby move, just to remind herself she wasn't alone. She whispered softly, I'm doing this for you, for us. By the time morning light slipped through the blinds, her exhaustion had mixed with something steady, something cold. Determination. She wasn't the same woman who walked into Ethan's apartment the night before. She felt different now. Awake. Ethan handed her a cup of water. "We meet with the attorneys today." Emily nodded. "Will they believe me?" The attorneys looked at each other, then nodded for Emily to open it. Her fingers shook as she broke the seal. Inside were DNA test results, old letters written in Linda's handwriting, sworn statements from people Emily didn't recognize, and a birth certificate with names she'd never heard before. The older attorney read quickly. Her eyes widened. "He's not the biological son of the patriarch." Emily swallowed. "So he never had any right to the inheritance?" "No," the attorney said. "Legally, this makes Ethan the rightful heir." The younger attorney took the papers, scanning them with disbelief. "If this gets out, Mark's entire identity collapses." Emily's voice came out small. "Is that enough to stop him?" The older attorney leaned forward. "Emily, this isn't just enough. This is catastrophic. This is the kind of truth that doesn't just end a man's reputation. It erases it." Emily stared at the papers again. Part of her couldn't believe this was real. For years, she'd wondered why Mark treated her like she was smaller, weaker. Now she saw it clearly. He treated everyone that way because deep down, he knew the truth. He wasn't who he pretended to be. The meeting lasted another hour, maybe two. Emily couldn't tell. When she finally stepped outside, the cold air hit her lungs hard. Ethan stood beside her. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "I will be." The next few days passed in a blur of quiet planning. Emily met the forensic accountant, who gave her a detailed report showing every dollar Mark had stolen under her name. She met with the nurse, who gave a sworn statement confirming Linda tried to paint her as unstable. She visited 2 employees from the company who had been bullied and threatened by Mark. Both agreed to testify. Each piece clicked into place like a puzzle only she and Ethan knew how to solve. Some nights she cried. Some mornings she woke up shaking. But she kept going. She had no choice. When everything was ready, Ethan slid a piece of paper toward her. "The date is set." Emily took it. A restaurant reservation. Mark's favorite place. He thought it was a reconciliation dinner. "He'll come," Ethan said. "Grace already convinced him." Emily's heart clenched. "Grace? She thinks he's choosing her," Ethan said quietly. "She has no idea what's coming." Emily didn't feel pity, not anymore. That night she returned to the house for the first time in days. Mark was waiting, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes full of fake concern. "Where were you?" he demanded. Emily set her bag down calmly. "Resting. You ignored my calls. I needed space." "You don't get space," he snapped. "You're my wife." "Not for long," Emily said softly. He froze. "What did you say?" She walked past him toward the bedroom. "I made a reservation for us tomorrow night. We need to talk." He blinked. "Are you finally apologizing?" She didn't look back. "Something like that." Mark smirked. "Good. I told Grace you'd come crawling back." Emily's hand tightened on the bedroom door handle, but she said nothing. Let him think she was crawling. Let him think she was weak. He didn't know what was coming. The next evening, she dressed simply and tied her hair back. When she walked into the restaurant, she saw Mark already sitting at the table, phone in hand, annoyed she kept him waiting. "You could have made an effort," he said. "You look tired." Emily slid into her seat. "It's been a long week." He waved at the server. "2 waters, and hurry." Emily studied him carefully. He looked relaxed, confident, oblivious. A man who believed the world would always bend toward him. "Where's your apology?" Mark asked, leaning back in his chair. Emily didn't answer. Instead, she nodded toward the door. Mark turned just as Ethan walked in. Mark's face twisted. "What the hell is he doing here?" "He's here for me," Emily said calmly. "I told you to cut ties with him," Mark snapped. "He's not family." "Actually," Ethan said, pulling out a chair, "I am. You're the odd one out, little brother." Mark stood abruptly. "Get out. I'm serious. I don't want you here." But it was too late. 2 attorneys entered, then the forensic accountant, then a police officer with a warrant. Mark's voice caught. Emily, what Ashanam? What is this? She didn't blink. Sit down. Mark looked around, panic crowding his expression. This is insane. What's going on? The police officer placed a folder on the table. Mark Wilson, we have a warrant to seize your electronics. What? Mark shouted. For what? The forensic accountant opened a laptop. For the money you stole from your wife. Mark laughed nervously. That's ridiculous. Emily, tell them. Emily picked up her phone and pressed play. The recording of him and Linda played loudly, clear as glass. Mark's voice discussing, making her look unstable. Linda describing how to take her baby. Mark's face drained of color. No, that's taken out of context. Emily tapped her phone again. Another recording, Linda confessing Mark wasn't the biological heir. Ethan watched him closely, his eyes cold. Mark stumbled back. No, that's not real. Grace arrived late, stepping into the room with a hopeful smile that collapsed when she saw the chaos. Mark, what's happening? He didn't even look at her. The lawyer slid a restraining order across the table. You are to have no contact with Emily effective immediately. Mark shook as he looked around the room. Emily, please tell them this is a misunderstanding. You know I love you. Emily's eyes were steady, calm, silent. You taught me something, Mark, she said softly. Power isn't loud. It's silent. And you didn't hear me until I stopped begging. Mark fell to his knees, shaking, sobbing, reaching for her even as the police stepped forward. And Emily looked down at him with a clarity sharper than pain. You ruined your life with your own hands, she whispered. All I did was stop holding them.